Hi guys, hope you're well. So election coming up. I know some people are interested, some people aren't interested, but I am. I'm going to vote for reform, and I thought it'd be really interesting to get the candidate around from my local area and just tell us exactly what reform we're going to do and why we should vote for them. So have a look. So hi folks, here I am with Eddie McDonald. He is the Reform UK candidate for Corby and East Northamptonshire. So thanks very much for coming around to see us.
No, thank you for inviting me.
So tell us why. I mean, you were a policeman, weren't you? Why have you then decided to change your whole life in a way and go to reform?
Well, I retired from the police 8 years ago, having done 30 years service. I didn't expect it. I didn't want anything more to do with policing. I certainly didn't want to go into politics. I wanted to enjoy myself. But basically, I thought the country was going downhill fast, and I couldn't see our politicians having any idea of how to get out of it. In fact, I sometimes think they actually encourage some of the demise of our establishment and the institutions. And so I looked at it, and one of the things I do quite a lot, according to my wife, is I shout at the telly. So one day she said, "I'll stop shouting at the telly and go and do something about it. You know you want to," which was quite true. So I said I gave 30 years to Northamptonshire before in my life. I've got 4 kids, a couple of grandkids. And I basically wanted them to have the same kind of lifestyle that I had, namely safety, being able to have a joke, fun, more importantly, again, being safe out there, having their own homes, etc. And I couldn't see either Labour or the Conservatives offering it. So, rather than shut up, I'll put up, and I thought I'll do something about it.
Has there been a sort of personal cost to you? And what's been the reaction of people around you?
Obviously, I have people and friends who don't endorse reform. They have their own political things, but we're all mature. I like to think we're mature in relation to our interpersonal communications. I haven't lost any friends. I didn't lose any friends over Brexit, for which I campaigned for. So we're quite clever, and we basically said we all want the same thing out of life. It's just the journey we take to get there. So we agreed to disagree on certain things, but it's also quite surprising that people who have quite opposite views to me on life do agree with some of my views. And I've got friends who've always been voted Labour and Conservative who are now voting Reform. So I would say that the majority of my friends have now switched their allegiance to Reform.
So have you become disillusioned with politics and politicians? Do you feel that they're accountable at all?
No, I think our system is such that what we have is a monopoly of power, and it really is between Labour and the Conservatives. Because of our first past the post system, it makes it very difficult, and has made it very difficult, for any new party to actually get a substantial voice in the system. One could say that it's been orchestrated that way. Labour and the Conservatives will never change it. The reason why they won't change it is because it'll be the end of them. And I think you've got to this stage where people not only don't trust politicians anymore because of all the corruption we see going on, the decisions that don't make any sense, and then we subsequently find out that they've suddenly got a lot of money, or people of theirs are connected with those companies that have been given the contracts. But more importantly, I think it comes down to the voting system we have. Because if you live in an area, for example, around here is predominantly Conservative. So if you're a Labour voter or a Liberal voter, and your vote is never going to count really in relation to the MP that you get, because it's always a blue zone. And it's the same would happen in areas where a heavy Labour. So we really need to change the system, because if we don't, you'll have a lot of people who'll vote for Party A but get very little representation in Parliament, in which case their vote doesn't count.
Yeah,
their voice is unheard.
All parties, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Greens and,
it doesn't matter which party it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So with reform, one of the things, the big thing has been, the immigration.
Yeah.
And have you had sort of opposition for that? There seems to be so much in the press that then immediately it makes the reformers racist, the whole thing. Have you reacted to that? Because when one is looking at immigration, just sort of sensibly, aren't we? Because that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, our immigration policy is basically about controlled immigration. Mm-hmm. It's nothing to do with race or religious belief or culture. It's about how many you can take. We've increased our population through immigration somewhere between 8 to 10 million people within 20 years. We only had something like 50 odd million before. So that's a huge increase. So all the issues that we're experiencing in the country, or more importantly, a lot of them, such as health, housing, policing, the state of the roads, is all down to the fact that we've got too many people here. We had so many people come in such a short period of time that the rest of the systems couldn't keep up. It wasn't like we were getting 1 million a year. We'd build so many houses, we'd build an extra school, we'd improve the roads, increase the infrastructure. No, they've all arrived in a very, very short period of time.
So what do you think about the press, the way that they portrayed reform, and the media in general?
But the press itself constantly throws out things that we're far right. But what is far right now? If you hear on the telly, I remember saying to a Labour friend of mine that they were now classed as far right because they believed in protecting our borders and having controlled immigration, which upset them greatly because they assumed and believed themselves to be a socialist. Yes. Their principles are socialist, and now they're classed as far right. So unless you actually adhere to the narrative from that particular group, everything else is far right. There's no centre ground. There's no near right. Everything's far right. And it recalls me back to the time where we had Brexit, where every single person who wanted or believed in Brexit was racist, was xenophobic, was the Little Englander, or the phrase that they throw around, gammons. And I think we got caught before they'd use that phrase, and it shut people up, which it did, because no one wants to be called racist or bigoted. But after a while, you become immune to it. It's almost like, oh, not again, what else have you got? And when I've been out, and I have been challenged a few times, I'll always ask them, well, tell me where my policies are racist. What do you understand by racist? And they, surprisingly, can never come back.
Are you worried about Labour getting in and the kind of woke ideology that they have?
Well, yes, not just about their woke ideology. I'm 58. I'm old enough to remember the previous governments and what I consider to be the last true Labour government of Jim Callaghan, which was brought down by the unions. Anything after that is not been traditional Labour. And that's where my family come from. We're working class, real working class. My family worked in mills. And so we were always brought up as, believing in looking after each other and working hard. That's all gone. I think the most worrying thing about Labour is the fact that there's so much out there that suggests they're going to be taxing everybody else. But they're just denying it, rather than coming around and being a bit honest and saying, well, we might have to do these increases. And these will be the areas we're looking at. They're hiding it, which means, as far as I'm concerned, if you're frightened to say something, there's got to be more coming.
View Sadiq Khan's attack on the car in London, and do you think that Labour would put that sort of throughout the country?
Anyone out there who has a caravan or knows anyone who has a caravan cannot vote for Labour or the Conservatives, because you're not going to be able to go very far with an electric car. And even if you do manage to go somewhere, you're going to get to an electric power point to find another 100 caravanners plus all the other people with their cars waiting to charge you. There isn't space. So you have them. But in relation to you, Les, it's not, I don't believe any of this is about saving lives. It's about making money.
Nigel Farage obviously has joined. How do you think he's sort of energised the party and he's sort of brought the youth in, hasn't he?
Yeah, Nigel is an amazing individual. The first time I ever heard him speak, you do leave energised. You want to go out and you want to do something for the cause, for the party. You realise it brings it home to you as though he's your mate. That this is the state of the world and we need to do something about it. So you do leave energised. I've not encountered a speaker like him, to be honest. Not that I was into politics, but he's a very good speaker. But he has energised everybody, and even people on the doorstep have said, I like you, but do you definitely get my vote now because Nigel's here? But I watched him on I'm a Celebrity. He is a tough old boy, and he did everything without a murmur. Yeah. He was brilliant. I must admit, I could not go and do what he did.
What's been your reaction going door to door?
The majority of people who speak to us and give an indication have said they're voting reform, their family are voting reform, their friends, their workmates, etc. The reason for this is because they say the country's in such a state, they've lost total respect and any trust in the Conservatives, for example. They're going to be punished. They want to punish the Conservatives for the way the world is. They don't trust Labour, either because historically they've never trusted Labour, or they're seeing the individuals that are there and it doesn't ring true. And they just think it's going to cost a lot more money. But it's really about our common sense policies. Immigration is a big issue. And again, even I was saying to you earlier that I met some young people and they're struggling to find houses. Houses are too expensive because there's too many people who want houses. They're fed up living at home with their mum, probably not as much as their parents. So they just want something that sounds like we're going to do something about it.
How are you going to get the people that don't vote out to vote? Because I mean, they could make a vast difference. To
Oh,
the
they
whole-
would.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the suggestion might be around 25% who don't vote. Part of that is to encourage them, because it's no use talking, I'm going to vote this, I want change, unless you get off your backside and then, for example, around here, you go and put a kiss against my name.
Well, we really appreciate you coming round. So, folks, if you are in this area, you've got to vote Eddie McDonald for a reform. Any final words to get those people out, Eddie?
Basically, all I'd say, it's no use moaning about things unless you're prepared to get off your backside. Okay, it's ever so easy to sit in the house, but if you want change, you have to vote for change. So get out there, put the X in the box, and then we'll see how we get on. If people don't vote for us, we'll never get to power and nothing will ever change, and we'll be whinging about it in another 5 years, another 10 years, another 15. So do it or lose it.